I said, and we've him on the line now, we have not talked to Shawn for a while, in actual fact, and a lot has happened, or has it really, as the dial shifted in American politics since the last time we talked to Professor Shawn Easley, and we're about to find out. Shawn, thank you so much for making yourself available to us. I know it's an unreasonable time of the day over there. Good to talk to you again.
Good to see you, Michael.
Yes, and we can see each other now. There you go. Hello.
Oh.
Now, Shawn, as I said, the last time I talked to you must have been about 3 weeks ago, maybe even longer, to do with the US presidential elections. There's a lot happened, but I haven't seen the poll dials move too much. What's your impression?
Right. Well, somebody just said the other night that we're a 50-50 country, and that remains to be the way it is. And as I've been saying all along through our dialogue, I still anticipate there could be some kind of so-called, breakout. Usually happens the weekend before the election, which would be, November 1st or so for us here. That somehow or another, through some miraculous, unpredictable mechanism, the winds start blowing and things start changing, and it definitively goes from one side to the other. So we're going to see if that happens, but you're right, it's still 50-50. There was some kind of discouraging news for the Trump side last week in the development of Jack Smith's filing of papers resurrecting the charges against him vis-a-vis the January 6th and his attempt to thwart the election. And people thought perhaps that might be the October surprise that could have some push on things, but hasn't seemed to have amounted to much. So, here we are.
Well, let's be honest about it. If you're talking about a surprise, you're talking about, usually it's a negative surprise, so it's some sort of scandal or revelation or something like that. Listen, to be honest with you, could any revelation touch Donald Trump anyhow that hasn't already been revealed?
That's such a great question. Yeah, his voters are absolutely dedicated to him. There doesn't seem to be anything in the world to dilute their passion for reelecting him. As he so faithfully said in, I believe it was October of 2015, that he could, in fact, go out onto Fifth Avenue and shoot someone and not lose a single person in support. It seems to be absolutely true today. Just been really no diminishing of his popularity with his base.
But it's not just his popularity, is it? Because if it was just his popularity, he wouldn't get elected. There are more people voting for him than think he was a good person, and that is because it's a sort of vote or protest against the economic conditions, Washington, the state of the country. There are other things driving the Republican vote, yeah?
I think the most important thing is the lack of trust in government. And that's manifest, been quite some time, been going on for a long time. And it seems to be a pretty popular trend. Obviously, it's always been on the right, the libertarian right, but it's becoming increasingly popular in the right, in a much larger segment of the electorate. And one of the most important manifestations of it is happening right now as we're in face of these two calamitous weather events, two successive hurricanes that have come up. And it's horrible, tragic loss of life and property and disruption. And tragically, many people are not following any of the instructions from their authorities regarding the things they need to do to preserve life and health and try to get some help financially and to try to rebuild and what have you. And all of it is largely born of a distrust of government that's been percolating for some time. And I think maybe that's what you're speaking of. It's what's really getting to the heart of that just doesn't change, not just that they like or dislike a person, but whether or not they believe that the government is being straight with them.
Listen, the other thing that came out of the polls that I've seen in the United States is there's also a gender divide. So males are more likely to vote for Donald Trump, women more likely to vote for Kamala Harris. Why is that? Is it just because they're males and females and that's the way it goes? Or is there a political leaning of men towards Republicans and women towards Democrats irrespective?
It's been going on for longer than there have been males versus females. Of course, we've had 2 elections now that the presidential candidates have been males and females. So it transcends that, but that's not entirely off base. There's a machismo and a kind of, in fact, I explain it to my students. Sometimes we get into this argument about something fascism or something communism. And I was trying to remind them that fascism is inherently masculine, and that communism is inherently feminine, because communism, if you will, the premise is that you will ask for help from others and everyone is in the same boat together. Whereas fascism, there's a definite hierarchy built, and the people that should pervade and should be on top of the hierarchy are, and that's kind of the natural order of things. And so in a very simplistic way, there's a gravity of masculinity towards the Republican Party. And there's also the gravity towards the Democratic Party, if you will, and feminism that most closely aligns with the ideals of thinking of things as doing things together versus thinking of things as being entirely singular in your own person. And again, very popular themes on the libertarian right for some time. So that's really true. And that split is very real. And then there's specific issues, of course. The abortion issue is very important. The gun issue is very important. And those things also help divide us along kind of a male-female line, no question.
I'm looking at the polls for the 7 weather vane states, I guess you'd call them, the Battleground States, I think they're called. And I'll talk to you about that in just a second. But the 7 Battleground States, is there generally an acceptance, Shawn, that in the other 43 states, you forget about it? Is the entire concentration? It looks from the outside. So you're there. I'm not. But from the outside, it looks like 43 states are going to have an election, and whoop-de-doo, 7 states are having the US presidential election, and there is where it's going to happen. Have I got that perception right or wrong?
No, that's still correct. Of course, I'll remind you that in those 43 other states, there are other elections going on besides the top of the ticket. There are 435 members of the House up. There are, 33 Senate races, 18 gubernatorial contests. And so I try to encourage people not to feel completely discouraged about the fact that they're in an either demonstrably red or blue state, and to make sure and participate anyway. But yeah, as far as the top of the ticket goes, it's boiling down to, like you said, 7. And we've talked about the 3, potentially most important. And one of the 7, very importantly, is, 2 of them, North Carolina and Georgia, which have both been profoundly affected by Hurricane Helene, which came through a few days ago. And now we have Hurricane Milton barreling down on Florida as we speak. And so there's some interesting discussions going on vis-a-vis what effect that climate event may have on the electoral event, which is now literally a month away, 4 weeks from tomorrow. So throwing even more kind of uncertainty into it is affecting whether or not these climate events will affect the election. And it could come in 2 ways. The first one could come simply in the literally displacing people from being able to vote, with the destruction being particularly widespread in North Carolina. And the other way, again, is more of this kind of attitude about government and government's response to people's needs, and specifically the efficiency of the federal government to respond in the face of a disaster. And so terribly, that has turned into a political issue. And it's turned into a political issue when you said is in one of those incredibly important, or 2 of those incredibly important states. So lots going on over here as far as that goes, but your essential premise is correct that the other 43 states of us are kind of looking for down ballot reasons to go out and demonstrate our franchise.